21 composition tips for better photos of buildings. Going to get straight into the list here. 1. Take one photo and get the best composition you can. 2. Use the rule of thirds. 3. Take a photo, then try a different focal length to get a different look. 4. Take photos from different angles. 5. Move back and move forwards. 6. Use leading lines. 7. Find the best light. 8. Capture intricate architectural details. That was 3 attempts at saying architectural, by the way. 9. Fill the frame. 10. Use negative space. 11. Convey the sense of scale of a building. 12. Try long exposure. 13. Play with depth of field. 14. Find interesting subjects to photograph. 15. Don't be put off by overcast days. 16. Give tilt-shift lenses a go. 17. Explore old buildings, but safely. 18. Go wider to capture the entire building, and then a bit more. 19. Get the building vertical. 20. And then do this. And finally 21. Choose a particular building and get to know it. And that was the answery bit. How utterly splendid. Hi and a very warm welcome to episode 206 of the Photography Explained podcast. Not sure why I'm always surprised with the number, but I'm always surprised with the number. I'm your host, Rick, and in each episode, I will try to explain one photographic thing to you in plain English in less than 27 minutes-ish, without the irrelevant details. Yes, really. I'm a professionally qualified photographer based in England with a lifetime of photographic experience, which I share with you in my splendid podcast. I'm going to go through these 21 tips now that will help you to take better photos of buildings. Most are composition related, but I did stray a bit with some of them. But not to worry, it's all good stuff all the same. And they're in the order that came into my head when I wrote this. There's no logic to this order. This is just what came out of my brain. Yes, really. So number 1, take one photo and get the best composition you can. Yes, I'm sorry, it's this again, but this is still a great way to approach taking photos of anything. Just try to take the best one photo that you can of a building. Now, if you could only take one photograph of a building, which one would it be? Think about this and try to get that one photo. And once you've done that, move on. Okay, if you want to take another photo of a different part of the building, that's fine, but get that one photo first. I'm not saying don't take any others, but take that mindset. If I could only take one photo of this building, what would it be? And then do it. It gets you thinking, if nothing else. Number 2, use the rule of thirds. Well, the rule of thirds, it helps place a building within the viewfinder. And if you can add the 3x3 grid to your camera LCD screen, which I can do in as the horizontal lines and the vertical lines on your LCD screen, they help you get the building aligned technically and also aesthetically, and it saves you time later. We should always be aiming to get the best photos that we can in camera rather than relying on fixing things later. So having that grid, it helps like I say, from an aesthetic and a technical point of view. So if you can put a 3x3 grid on your LCD screen, do it. And if you could put it on your EVF, your electronic viewfinder, I haven't got one on my Canon 6D, then do that as well. Excellent. Number 3, take a photo, then try a different focal length to get a different look. Different focal lengths give different perspectives and different depths of field. You can use different focal lengths from different positions, but with the same composition, which in this case would be the same building or the same parts of a building. And the different focal lengths with that same composition, they'll give you different outcomes. So take a photo at 50mm standard focal length, then walk back and get the same composition and take a photo using 200mm focal length. Then go forward and take the same composition with a 28mm focal length, and then compare the results and see if there is a difference and see if you have a preference. And while you're doing this, try different apertures each time you take photos and you might find something different that you like in there. We shouldn't just restrict ourselves to wide-angle lenses for photos of buildings. It's the same as with landscape photography. You can use a telephoto lens to take photos of buildings, be it a whole building, from a long way off granted, or parts of a building, which is more likely. 4. Take photos from different angles. I start face on and central, and then I go left and right and up and down if I can to try and find an interesting or new view of a building. Down could be somewhere else or with the camera on the floor. Up could be somewhere else, as in up some steps or something, or with my camera sat 5 meters above the ground, stuck on a painter's pole. Yes, I have a painter's pole, and an attachment allows me to connect my camera to my painter's pole securely. You've got to be careful doing this because a 5 meter long pole, it takes a bit of handling, but using the Canon app and a bit of ingenuity, I can take photos of a building up to 5 meters above ground level, and that can make a huge difference because you're changing the perspective from what you normally see in photos. Now, if we think about this, the floor level of, say, a 2-story house, the floor level is going to be somewhere between 2.5 and 3 meters. So, photograph from ground level is one perspective, photograph from first floor level is another perspective, and with a 5 meter painter's pole, you could get quite a way up the second floor, and you're beginning to look at the house from a different angle, and it gives you a different perspective. So, get a painter's pole. Mine cost me 20 quid. The attachment cost me 20 quid. That was a good decade ago, mine, but they're still in use to this day, and they give you something different. You just got to be careful and make sure your camera's nice and steady and get your act together in terms of taking photos using an app and all that good stuff. And be careful using a painter's pole in public spaces, though. It's still safer than using a drone, which is a no-no in occupied public spaces. But you might get asked some questions and you might get moved on. Just be mindful. My painter's pole's bright yellow, so you're not going to miss me. Right, next one. Number 5, move back and move forwards. As well as doing what I said with the different focal lengths, move backwards to photograph the building in its environment. This is a context photo. Now, the design of a new building will factor in adjacent buildings and this building's impact on them as part of the consent process. So to get a photo of a building that shows the context, as in how it relates to other things, how it sits in the world around it, it's a really important shot. And then, of course, you can move forward and get the composition of parts of the building and detail shots. 6, use leading lines. Buildings and the bits around them on the floor, they've got lines within them. They're all over the place, and you can use these to guide the eye. Think of things like footpaths, planting, anything really around the building that you can use to frame the building and direct the eye wherever you want to. This is a really powerful compositional technique that uses what's there to help make better compositions. And these lines will form part of the design of a building. And things like steps, handrails, fence lines, all that stuff. It's all there to give us points of interest. And you can, by going up and down, you can change how they all relate to each other. So very useful things to help make photos more interesting. 7, find the best light. Photography is drawing with light. I think I said this before. Just saying. So find the best light for that one photo of a building. And this is one of the benefits of just trying to get one photo. You can work out where the best light is and when, as let's not forget our free overhead light source, it moves throughout the day, doesn't it? So the time of day and how the light relates to a building and that shot of the building that you want to get, they need some careful consideration. If you're photographing everything on a building, how can you possibly get the best light for all things at the same time? You can't, can you? That's a really good point, that wasn't in my script. And we need to think beyond the headline times, golden hour, blue hour, etc. We have to be able to take photos during the day. Well, I do anyway. Number 8, capture intricate architectural details. Some buildings will have amazing, intricate details. Find them and capture them as details. They can often get lost in the sheer scale of a building. Now, to find them, you might want to do some research before you go to a building, or when you get there, have a good old look and see what you can find. I'm more in the have a good old look and see what you can find school. I'm not saying this is right. I don't like doing research. I like getting somewhere and finding things to photograph. I like finding interesting things. I'm not very good at researching places before I go to them, as Mrs. M knows all too well. She likes doing the research, by the way. Number 9, fill the frame. Fill the frame with that lovely building. Make it the star of the show. Exclude everything else, and then try this. Number 10, use negative space. Move back. Use the space around the building to allow it to breathe. And then compare the two. See which you prefer. There's no right or wrong answer here. Both are valid. You might have a preference. Now, negative space is normally the sky. So when you're placed in the building, just think about how it looks within a big load of sky. You don't want it too small that you can't see it, but you can make some clever use of negative space. Maybe put the building offset so you got some space to the left. Have a play, have a think. See what you come up with. Number 11, convey the sense of scale of a building. A really effective way of doing this is to include something that is familiar to us that clearly shows the scale of the building. A person works perfectly for this. How handy is that? There are lots of people around. Take a photo of a massive building with a person in front of it, and it's so easy to appreciate the size and scale of the building, isn't it? And if there aren't any people about, or you're worried about having strangers in your photos, then why not include yourself? And yes, this could become your thing, so give it a go. Now, you can either use the self-timer on your camera, if you can get where you need to be in less than 10 seconds, or get a decent remote release, and there you go. You're all sorted. How utterly splendid. I love doing this. I've done it lots of times. I actually did it when I was photographing a sports hall, because there were meant to be loads of people there and there weren't, so I had to appear in lots and lots of photos. And you have to remember, you have to sort out your focus as well. You need to pre-focus, which is one for another time, I guess. 12, try long exposure. Why would you want to take a long exposure photo of a building? Moving clouds, you can blur them, and that gives your photo of that building a completely different feel. It's an effect I love. And one way to do that is using a neutral density filter. More on that in the next episode. Seamless, Rick, seamless. 13, play with depth of field. The main thing that you do when photographing a building is to make sure there is enough depth of field to make the entire building sharp. I prefer the term depth of sharpness myself. I've mentioned that before, haven't I? Yes, you have, Rick. Or you can reduce the depth of field so only part of a building is sharp, or a single element of that building. Now, there's a lot you can do with depth of field, especially if you combine this with creative placement of yourself and creative composition and clever use of focal lengths and aperture settings. It's so easy to forget that doing anything other than having all the buildings sharp is a possibility, so have a play around and see what you get. It's always good to play around and try and find something different, because you never know what you're going to stumble on and think, like that. 14, find interesting subjects to photograph. I wouldn't spend too much time on a boring building. I would spend time on something interesting, though. And indeed, this is what I do. Now, this could be architecturally interesting, construction interesting, or locationally interesting, or just a famous building. And I'm going to contradict myself now. A boring but famous building can be an interesting subject matter, but in a different way from an architecturally interesting building. If you want to take interesting photos, find something interesting to photograph. 15. Don't be put off by overcast days. I live in England. We know clouds too well. But I don't let them put me off. I can't afford to be honest. I embrace and I love clouds, and I make them part of a photo. I make them part of the composition. Now, I think I'd find blue skies boring if I had them every day. I do keep asking if someone living somewhere with a permanent blue sky finds it boring or not, but I'm still waiting for someone to tell me. So text me from the feed and tell me, is it boring having the same blue skies all the time? I'm in England, we don't know.
It's not up for you to decide whether I can or can't do it. You ask me what you need done, and I'll either say yes or no, but more often than not, I will find a way. Don't just assume you know what a person with a disability can or can't do.
Clouds can be a photographer's friend, and let's not forget, when you got moving clouds, you have other creative opportunities to explore, which I mentioned before. Yeah, you can't blur a blue sky, can you? 16. Give tilt-shift lenses a go. Tilt-shift lenses are specialist lenses that serious architectural photographers use. Other photographers do as well, but one of the main uses is for photographing buildings. I used to have one, but I sold it and I manage in other ways. See, the problem I was having that it's a manual focus lens, a tilt-shift lens, and when you get to my age and with my eyesight, it's a challenge for sure. I really wish I'd persisted more with the tilt-shift lens, though, and I do plan to buy another one at some time. With a tilt-shift lens, in simple terms, you can photograph a tall building without the converging verticals. It's a wondrous thing to be able to do. And the more I think about this, the more I want one of these marvels again. One day, Rick, one day, the Canon 17mm TSE lens will be yours, Rick. Yes, it will. See, I use a 17mm focal length all the time, so that lens would be perfect for me. 17. Explore old buildings. I love old buildings. Old buildings can provide so much interest. Old buildings have histories, stories that they tell. And I don't look at modern buildings the same way I look at old buildings. As clever as modern buildings are, they are just not the same for me. So, if you want, find an old building somewhere and explore what it has to offer, and you might be surprised by what you find. Old buildings, they've got aging on the side as well, which provides an endless source of interesting stuff that we can capture. There's an endless variety of designs, materials, construction techniques from over the years that make old buildings amazing subject matters, and the weathering and the decay, of course, which is fascinating in itself. But always be careful. Make sure your exploring is safe, and if you're not sure, do not proceed. No photo is worth an injury, ever. And this applies even more so with derelict buildings. Photograph derelict buildings from the outside, from a safe distance, but do not go into them. They are dangerous places that we should not be in. Right, lecture over. Move on, Rick. 18. Go wider to capture the whole building and a bit more. You've got to go wide to get all of a large building in, and you need to go even wider, unless you're using a tilt-shift lens, that is. Why is that? Well, you can't photograph a large building without getting converging verticals, so you need the extra space around it for what I'm about to come on to in point 19. 19, you get the building vertical. Very important. Unless you're photographing the Leaning Tower of Pisa, that is. And if you want to know more about me photographing the tower, I wrote about this in an email I sent to my subscribers. If you want that email, let me know. And subscribe to my email list to get a weekly email from me. More on that later. Shameless sales pitch there, Rick. But most buildings are built straight and true, and we need to accurately capture this. That is our job as photographers. So you get the horizontal lines level, and then you get the vertical lines vertical, which for tall buildings is often a combination of going back wide enough to capture the complete building and giving enough working space to make the building vertical in post-processing. When you got a building with converging verticals, when you correct them, you lose some of the composition on either side, so you need the extra space. Now, you need to practice this to really appreciate it. That's why we have to go wide and then a lot more. You need to work this out yourself by processing. Oh yes, and this is editing that's fine, as you can't normally photograph a tall building correctly. It's simply impossible. So this is acceptable photo editing and manipulation in my opinion. Number 20, then do this. Your building's vertical. Does it look normal? Well, quite often they look a bit odd. And if so, I like to give a little lean back to make things look more normal. We're used to looking at tall buildings that have got converging verticals, aren't we? So having a building look ramrod vertical, whilst technically correct, it might just look odd. So give it a little lean back, 5%, 10%, see what you think. It might make it look more natural and realistic, which is what we want to do, don't we? We want to take a photograph of a building that represents the building the best we can. And if it looks a bit odd, are we doing it justice? No, we're not. Finally, 21. Finally, choose a particular building and get to know it. If you could pick a building that you can get to easily and keep going back to easily, do that and try new things. Try all of the above, thinking about it. And once you've adopted a building of choice that you can easily get to, try going back at different times of the day and different times of the year, as the conditions will vary over the course of days in a year. And go back to it in different weather conditions too. So many variables with one building. Right, that was the 21 things. A few more things to say, starting with, what if I use a phone to take photos? Well, basically, most of the above applies. Phones come with wide-angle lenses these days. Take my iPhone, for example. It's got a wide-angle lens that is about 13mm focal length, which equates to a very wide-angle focal length with a full-frame camera. I use 17mm on a full-frame camera, so 13mm, that's really wide. But the problem with taking photos with a phone, for me, not necessarily you, but for me, is getting the composition bang on. I take my time, but I never seem to get buildings as level and vertical as I do with my camera, even with the grid lines to help me. So take care when you're composing photos of buildings with a phone. Yes, I could put my phone on a tripod, but if I'm going to do that, I might as well put my camera on a tripod and take the photo with my camera. Just saying. What do? I photograph buildings. I'm an architectural photographer. And I love architectural photography, building photography, construction photography. Call it what you want. I love doing it. And I use a full-frame Canon 6D with a Canon 17 to 40mm lens for most of my photos of buildings. No, I'm not being paid by Canon to tell you this. I bought all this stuff with my own money. And most of the time I use the 17mm focal length, which I love. Yep, there's no reason why I can't go with a 17mm tilt-shift lens other than justifying the cost, which will stop me from buying some other stuff that I might need a little bit more. And the manual focus thing, of course. I love taking photos of buildings with my camera, but not so much with my phone, which I mentioned before. I also enjoy trying different angles and viewpoints and always try to get something a bit different. And I normally try to get one photo, then move on to something else. Talking of moving on, move on, Rick. And that's what I do. Some thoughts from the last episode. Well, it was rather splendid, wasn't it? I use a tripod for photos of buildings too, and I take the photos of buildings in a very similar way to how I take landscape photos. That's composition-wise and technically as well. And gear as well. They're similar subjects. They sort of are and they aren't, you know what I mean? It's the same gear, the same techniques to take the same photos, but of different things. I think that makes sense. Next episode, ND filters. What are they? What do they do? Do I need one? I wrote about this in my weekly email and decided that I want to cover these in their own episode. I've got one ND filter, ND being short for neutral density, but it's one of my favourite bits of gear, so I am looking forward to that. A quick plug for me and what I do. Well, why not? If I can't plug myself on my own podcast, where can I? So you found this podcast, why not check out the podcast website, photographyexplainedpodcast.com. I have another photography website, rickmcavoyphotography.com, where I write blog posts about my photographs of buildings and other good stuff. And on my courses page, you'll find my course, How to Become a Real Estate Photographer. And you can also find me on YouTube talking about my podcast and my blog. Type my name in and you'll soon find me there. You can actually listen to my podcast on YouTube, and there are some full-length podcast episode videos on there if you want to watch me for half an hour. I'm saying nothing. Get a weekly email from me. Yeah, I mentioned it before. If you want a weekly email from me, fill in the box on any of my websites, and every Friday you will read what I'm thinking about photography related. That's the self-promotion over. Ask me a question. If you have a question you'd like me to answer or you just want to say hi, email me at sales@rickmcavoyphotography.co.uk, visit the podcast website, or you can text me from the podcast feed. So many ways to get in touch. Take the time and trouble to get in touch with me, and I will get back to you, and that is my promise to you. Right, this episode was brought to you by the anticipation of a cheese and pickle sandwich, but no salt and vinegar crisp, because today is healthy day, which I have not yet consumed, so I'm rather hungry. So I just had some water before settling down in my homemade, acoustically cushioned recording emporium. I'm done. I've been Rick McAvoy. Thanks again very much for listening to my small but perfectly formed podcast, it says here, and for giving me 27 minutes-ish of your valuable time. Now, I reckon this episode will be about 25 minutes long after I've edited out the mistakes and other bad stuff. Thanks for listening. Take care. Stay safe. Cheers from me, Rick.